So, Lee, can you summarise to me sort of the feelings behind last night's match? You said it was a wee bit of a scrappy game, but that was to be expected.
Really happy to get through. A bit relieved to get through, because let's be right, everybody expected Ayr United to get through against Pollock, and we know from not too distant history that can't always be the case, losing to a local rival in the same league as Pollock a couple of years ago. So listen, happy days, we've got the clean sheet, we're in the next round, and we've got to be happy with that.
Tougher game than anticipated though?
No, not really, no, not in any way. I watched the game against Annan, we knew they would be tough. Obviously a so-called lesser team coming down, it's their cup final, they're going to give everything to it. We knew that especially the first 15, 20, 30 minutes was going to be tough. Slowly but surely I think we gained control of the game, and in the second half I thought we did control the game for long periods. Felt relatively comfortable, but at 1-0 there's still a nervousness there. All it takes is one slip and you're suddenly into extra time and potentially going to penalties where it's a coin toss.
And Ben, you're the man that bagged the goal last night, walk us through that.
Yeah, it was a good ball from Jaden up to Dippo. Took his time, worked the space, cut it back to Husty, and it was just all about timing the run. Being there on time, and just about got my studs to it.
So what does it mean to you, being in the midfield, getting that? Does it give you a bit of a confidence boost for going on in the season?
Yeah, goals are massive for me, and it's something I've aimed towards. I had an aim at the start of the season, and yeah, no, it is massive for my confidence. I had a few chances in the first half, so yeah, it was a sigh of relief that it did come in the second half.
Sure.
Ben, you probably had more of a free roll to get forward last night. It was no more the amount of chances that you managed to go on the end of, and you spoke after the game about hoping to hit double figures, no pressure on you, but you certainly looked more of a threat last night, that would be fair to say.
Yeah, I think playing alongside Bangala in the middle, he was doing a lot more the defensive side sitting. I think that did allow me to get forward, and it showed. I think that's probably the most chances I've had in a single game. But yeah, I'm hopeful of double figures, so watch this space.
And you also said afterwards that this is probably the most you've ever enjoyed your football. Could you maybe touch on why that is?
I think, yeah, just the confidence. I feel there's a lot of trust being put into me from the gaffer and the staff and the players, and I feel like I'm relishing with it. It's probably the most consistency I've had. I've played a lot of games, and long may it continue.
Lee, from your point of view, I mean, obviously they're having to dig a little bit deeper into your squad at the moment, but you're obviously getting the answers that you want.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things was getting the clean sheet out of last night's game, because that back four sort of been thrown together due to various injury circumstances, and it's probably a back four that we're going to have to go with for the next 2 or 3 games. Touch wood, no more injuries. So delighted, as I say, not to concede any goals, especially heading into what will be a tough game against Wraith Rovers at the weekend.
And any manager would say it's a sign of a good team, I suppose, to win when not playing at their best, and that must please you from that regard? Yeah,
we've had to do that the last 2 or 3 sort of weeks, is dig results out with not particularly playing to our best. But I think you've got to understand that we maybe caught a few teams on the hop early on in the season, but slowly but surely, because you play each other 3 or 4 times in this league, teams are going to adapt, going to understand what your strengths and weaknesses are as you go on, and that's what happens, especially when you've been near or at the top of the league. The target on your back becomes bigger, so people study it more and more to try and find what your weaknesses are, what your strengths are, and try and nullify them. So we've got to take that on board as a pat in the back to ourselves, but we've also got to handle that and find other ways to win in games, and if it means we have to scrap games out to get results, we'll do that.
And what are your thoughts on Red Rovers' strengths and weaknesses, a team that have picked up a wee bit recently?
Yeah, I mean, they got off to, I would say, a slow start to this season, but they've picked up tremendously well. They play good football, they move the ball well. I think they're a team that really believes in what their manager's trying to do. Got good individual players, but they also work well as a unit. Don't get me wrong, I thought our first half play up at Starks Park earlier on in the season was possibly the worst half that we've had all season, but we readjusted, sorted ourselves out, played forward a lot more in the second half, and got ourselves really back into the game, and I thought we had the momentum at that time. Unfortunately it wasn't to be. Fair play to Wraith, they stuck at it and got the 3rd goal, so we come away with 0 points. So hopefully we can put that right on Saturday down here.
Excellent. And also thoughts on Cove Rangers for the Scottish Cup tie? You'll be up there in consecutive weeks.
A lot of people will look at it and say, oh, it's not very glamorous tie, but ultimately it's one that myself and and Jim, the Cove manager, both teams will look at it and think, oh, it's not the most glamorous tie in the world, but it's a winnable game. We went up there and had probably one of our better performances of this season, comfortable win. Then they come down there and give us a real tough time here. They've improved dramatically since then, so they'll fancy their chances in that tie. But we also know that on our day it is a winnable tie for us, so it's all the makings of a really good opportunity to get further on in the cup, and that's all you're really looking for. It's all about getting the result over the line, and then hopefully getting the hat for the next round, see who you get at that point.
And just touching on January is fast approaching, it'll be here before we know it. You've got the hot property of the Championship this season with Dippo coming in. What are your thoughts on keeping him this January, or is there any sort of working eyes?
I'm sure there's loads of working eyes and looking at him, and loads of people that would like to take him, but I don't think there's many teams in Scotland that have got the money to buy him, to be honest with you. Not in January anyway. I think it'd be a heck of an offer for any of the players for our chairman to turn around and say, no, I think we have to look at this, considering where we are in the league. Listen, I've no fears going into the January window. We've got to understand where we are as Ayr United, as a football club, and the budgets we have to work to, and if a silly offer comes in for any of our players, never mind it being Dippo, then we've got to look at that realistically. But genuinely, I think the board's comfortable with where we're at, and as I say, it'd have to take some sort of really good offer for us to think about letting any of our players go. We're trying to build something here, and I think where we are in the league and what we've done up to this point is justification enough for me to fight the corner of keeping the players on board.
And I imagine he's obviously quite happy staying here right now. He's only just really got here and he's banging in the goals, really seems to be enjoying his football. He
does seem to enjoy it. I mean, unlike Ben, he actually smiles now and again, so he seems to do that alright, even after scoring 5 goals a season as a midfielder. He does tend to crack a smile now and again, but hopefully when he gets to double figures then he might crack a smile, you know. So no, he's come up, he's enjoyed it, and the hardest thing for anybody joining a new football club is earning the praise of your peers, i.e. your teammates, and that's what's happened. And I think that's similar to where Ben is. I think he's saying he's playing his best football, but that's because one, he's got the confidence of the coaching staff up here, but it's his teammates as well. They really trust him, and I think he enjoys playing with the players around him and feels a bit of freedom to go and express himself on the pitch, and that's exactly what's happening with Dippo as well.
Lee, just finally looking ahead to Saturday, although you've got a couple of injuries at the moment, it's certainly not a case of the team picking itself at the moment, is it? Far from it.
Oh, absolutely not. No. Listen, I suppose defensively it looks relatively simple, but when you look at the wide areas and the front areas, it's not an easy task to pick all the lads, because everybody's training to a really high standard, and it's not necessarily picking the two to start, it's trying to justify to the other lads that aren't in the team why they're not in the team, because they're not doing much wrong in any way whatsoever. Again, David comes in for his first start last night and grew into the game as the team did, and I thought he did really well. So the tough thing for him and Paul in that central area is that Ben and Murdy's been so consistent this season, so it's tough, but it's great to see them get opportunities, come in and do really well, as Paul did earlier on in the season against Queen's Park in that 5-0 win, go up to Dundee and play against the next Premier League team. It was brilliant for such a young lad. And in the wide areas, honestly, it can be a coin toss from time to time. Dara's injury helps me a little bit, which sounds a bit weird in relation to picking a team. It doesn't help me because I want all the players as fit as possible. And then up top, every single one of them's had a positive impact, so they're good problems to have.